Sell before you build. Don't spend any time building anything. Don't spend any time coding. Don't spend any time hiring. Make sure you are talking to prospective customers, understanding their problem, kind of goes back to that first question, and building to or understanding a solution that needs to be created for them. And that's when you start building. And I like so many learnings. This is my third rodeo now, right? We did not write a line of code until we had a contract in hand, and that's just
Hmm.
changed the culture internally for us, right? We are very much commercially oriented, but at the same time we're very much problem oriented. I'm not here thinking that what my idea is so amazing that I need to push it out into the world. I want to know what the world's problems are, my customers problems are. Let me build towards that. Let me solve their problems, right? So sell before you build. Get that contract, know that someone actually cares enough to whip out their checkbook and pay you before you even start creating anything.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7 and 8 figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. You ever need help with yours? Just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Deepak, and I'll let him say his last name because I'm sure I will slaughter it. But Deepak started his journey, born and raised in New York City, then went to high school and had about an hour and a half commute to get to high school each way, but made it through nonetheless. Went to college and started studying engineer, but didn't finish due to the cost of college, and so shifted gears and went into investment banking. I got all of his debt paid off and moved back to the U.S. after working abroad for a period of time, and then started working for Dropbox for a period of time. Did his own thing and it was related to the traveling business until COVID hit and had to shift a bit and make an exit there, and took a break to be a dad for a while before shifting to gears to what he's doing today. So, with that much as a quick introduction, welcome on the podcast, Deepak.
Thanks for having me, Devin. Much appreciate you taking the time to kind of go through all that. I've never heard 25 years worth of stuff packed into, 10 seconds. So thanks for that. That's awesome.
Absolutely, condensing everybody's lives into just a few seconds. So, well, with that, why don't we? I gave the very quick introduction, but why don't we rewind and unpack that a little bit? So, tell us a little bit about how your journey got started, being born and raised in New York City.
Yeah, happy to. Happy to. And yes, my name is Deepak Shrivastava. I always tell folks if you could say Schwarzenegger, you can say my last name. So Shrivastava it is. But thank you for the handoff. Yeah, I am a snobby New Yorker. I'm a native of Queens, born in the Bronx. So definitely a product of the five boroughs here. But interestingly enough, I spent the bulk of my career outside of New York up until very recently. You mentioned a quick story. I did have an hour and a half commute to high school, going all the way to downtown Manhattan from East Queens. Definitely helped me build some grit. I always say that my third parent is the subway, which I learned a lot from. But it's relevant because no matter where I was in the world or in my career or what setting, corporate, startup, or otherwise, I think growing up in New York, being on the subway, learning to navigate the city helped me navigate the world. And I always felt comfortable and confident no matter where you plop me, I'll figure it out. So a lot of that grit, I think, is attributable to having the subway be my third parent, particularly the E and the F trains. But you're absolutely right. I did start studying engineering. I didn't. I finished engineering, but I didn't end up go into engineering. I took the highest paying job that I could get, thankfully, got into investment banking at Morgan Stanley, ended up spending way more time than I thought I would. The traditional path was two
Now,
years
just
as an analyst. You go
yeah,
on
just
yeah,
sorry, just real quick before we
go for it,
dive too deep. So you
please.
went engineering, investment
Mm,
banking is a bit of a different gear, a different direction than necessarily engineering. So was it
yeah.
purely just, hey, I can make the most money here, and who cares if I'm happy or not? I'll just make as much money and worry about happiness later? Or was there an element of, hey, this sounds interesting and I'd like to shift and go in a different direction and try something different, or combination thereof, or kind of maybe help us understand, kind of having gone through engineering, which
Yeah.
isn't a small, a small thing, or what kind of made you shift gears to in a different direction?
Yeah, great question. The answer I gave my interviewers at the time at Morgan Stanley was definitely like, hey, this is a way more interesting work. But the reality was like, and this kind of dovetails back to like my roots here in the city. Like my parents are immigrants. By no means were we poor, but every dollar was always spoken for. So when I knew that, hey, I got a lot of students ahead of me. I got a younger brother and younger sister. They're on the track to go to college as well. Parents' mortgage, just having all that math. To be honest, I didn't really think about my own happiness or what I wanted to sort of do and what would make me happy or what I would be passionate about. I took the highest paying job that I could, right? Those bonuses at the end of first and second year analyst programs in investment banking at the time, just that one check was bigger than my parents' combined income in a year. So it was a pretty much no brainer for me to pursue that path. Now, the boon out of that was I did enjoy the work. I think being in investment banking is just an amazing training ground. And the work is intellectually challenging. The people that I was working with and for, some of the smartest folks I've ever encountered. So definitely thankful for that experience at Morgan Stanley. And that's what motivated me to stay beyond sort of your traditional 2, 3 years as an analyst and into almost a decade, and afforded me the opportunity to work not only here in New York, but the bulk of my time in the West Coast and in Hong Kong, where I spent lots of my finance career there.
No, makes sense. Sounds like it turned out to be a good opportunity and provide a good income to pay for some of the college debts, as well as to set things up for the future. So you go through that. You said you were there for a period of about 10 years. So maybe kind of
Mhm.
walk us through after being there for, a decade and for a pretty good amount of time. What kind of or what direction did you head from there? Kind of what was the next phase in the journey?
Yeah, after all those debts were paid and all those obligations sort of seen through, I did have a chance to kind of reflect and think like, oh, do I need to keep doing this, or is there an opportunity to explore other things? I was always interested in technology, so I took a gap year, probably 10 years after I should have, but it was very exploratory in terms of the kind of things I was getting into. And interestingly enough, I somehow fell into a solopreneurship. I had, for a very short period of time, an agency. I was still based out in Hong Kong, an agency that was bringing musical talent from LA and Vegas to venues in Asia. So basically, I'd play broker where, hey, if there was a venue in Shanghai or Taipei or Singapore or New Delhi, Bangkok, name your Asian city, and they were looking for talent from the States, I was kind of your guy. So it was a fun coupon to clip. I was based in Hong Kong. It afforded me the ability to pay rent. And I wish I had started it like 10 years earlier, because I knew at some point that there was a deadline to this kind of business just because I didn't want to be the 40-year-old at the club. So I was like, look, I know I got to get back to reality, but it was a fun stint. I was lucky enough to link up with some old Morgan Stanley colleagues in San Francisco, and I was took the opportunity to join Dropbox in its early days. So lots of fun. There were so many things going on. I think I joined when there was like maybe 50 or so people. Saw the company grow in less than a year to 10x that. Had a chance to wear a bunch of different hats. I moved back to New York for a brief period of time to help open up the office here in New York. And also really found my stride on the B2B sales team where we were helping to build that enterprise side of the business. So it was a lot of fun. It was like drinking from a fire hose, completely different experience than being in a buttoned up suit, quite literally and figuratively, at an institution like Morgan Stanley, 50,000 people globally, versus a growing startup that was just going gangbusters and truly a rocket ship of a ride.
No, it makes sense. So you said that that was kind of with the introduction of people from Morgan Stanley. Now, maybe rewinding just a little bit, you'd
Mm.
taken that 1 year time frame. Was it kind of at the end of that you said, okay, I've taken the breather, taken a break, now back to reality, or was it, hey, I need to, get the finances back in order and get the income back up after kind of taking the break, or I want to I've kind of had my fun and I want to, circle back, or kind of how did you decide when the
Yeah.
time was right to kind of re-engage and go to the Dropbox?
Yeah, great question. And like, look, I'm super transparent and direct. Thankfully, after almost a decade in banking, I had a decent enough safety net. I didn't have any real world obligations. I wasn't married. I didn't have kids, so I was flying solo. So I had a chance to kind of explore and do what I wanted to do. And I thought very acutely whether I should go back to something in banking or go to the buy side in finance at a hedge fund or a PE shop. Again, really following a traditional path post banking. But I knew I had that safety net. I knew if I was going to try something different, now was probably the time where I was the most kind of shackle free. So the opportunity to move back to California was appealing. The opportunity to be part of a rocket ship and work with folks that I had already had a lot of respect for was too good to be true. So I moved back to San Francisco, started up with Dropbox, and that was that. It was definitely life changing in the sense that it was only a brief tenure in my career history at Dropbox, but it definitely switched gears, and I think was the birth of like a new muscle in my brain to kind of really be involved in all things tech and startup.
So now you say it was a, brief stint. So kind of how long were you at Dropbox, and kind of what shifted you to go to the next phase, or in the next direction?
Yeah, I was there for a little over a year, which in startup terms, especially when the company's growing up so fast, it almost makes you feel like a veteran after a few months because there's always a new crop of folks coming in, and you kind of wake up like, wait, actually, I know more than I thought I did, and I've been around for some time now relative to others. But what really prompted me to kind of go to the next stage and start my own company was seeing the dynamics of the deals that I was selling. So a little bit of double clicking into this, I was in New York selling into companies both media, fintech. We were at that time about a dozen years ago. It was a very novel idea to move enterprise storage to the cloud.
Hmm.
So it was a really fun place to be, quite frankly, selling into CTOs and CIOs. But I noticed, like, look, every $1 million annual contract I'm selling, folks on the other side of the table, i.e., the VCs and investors into Dropbox, were marking up their portfolios 10x. So I'm here selling a million, they're getting 10 million of value. Something felt a little bit off. So I was like, you know what? Why don't I just go hardcore early stage? And that really meant, why don't I just become a founder myself and figure out a business that I want to launch myself and really try to reap or maximize the upside. And that was one of the biggest compelling reasons for me to go into the founder space itself.
So now, and that's or kind of where I was going to ask. So you decide, okay, been there for a year, gained some good experience, got some good insight, probably made some good connections and whatnot. Now, how did you decide, as you were saying, okay, next stage is I'm going to dive in deep and go early stage, or do my own thing? How did you decide kind of the what you're going to do, or kind of the direction you're going to head?
Yeah. So, I definitely thought to myself, like, hey, I want to go even more early stage so I can get more upside and be at the real beginnings, foundational roots of building a company. And, the delta in terms of like being a founder, the delta in terms of what you do. Now, I'll make the distinction. The delta in terms of what you do versus the delta in terms of like your sense of obligation, responsibility, and quite frankly, mental stress. Two categories, but very different. Whether you're employee number five or a founder, in terms of what you do, quite honestly, you're still wearing a lot of hats. You're doing a lot of the work versus the mental obligation, the stress, the burden you carry on your shoulders being a founder versus early stage employee. Again, very different. And
Hmm.
again, I'll go back to kind of my life situation at the time. I'm not married. I got no kids. I'm living alone. I'm back in New York. It felt like the right time to think to myself, like, look, if I wanted to be a founder and if I wanted to really swing for the fences and start my own company, now's the time to do it, right? Not when maybe later on life obligations will come, hurtling towards me. Maybe later on life where I don't have the same safety net. So I had a little backup and I thought, like, maybe now's the time to do it. And I was lucky enough to link up with my co-founder at the time to start a business in the travel tech sector. And when that opportunity, pronounced itself, I was looking at other early stage opportunities as well. It was clear to me, like, hey, if I'm going to do it, let me just go full force with it. And that's what compelled me to kind of get into the founder space and start a company.
Hmm. So now you mentioned it was travel related. So kind of what did you do within the travel industry, or kind of what was the business that you started?
Yeah, the business was called Porter and Sale and went through multiple iterations, but essentially it was a B2B business where our customers were hotels globally. And initially it started out as a mobile app shop. And I should say that it was scalable in the sense that we had one mobile app and it was a co-platform where many hotels would join the platform and have their guests be able to experience their city, their hotel, their property. What it morphed into as we started providing more and more ROI to our customers was an upsell platform to help extract more revenue per guest for each of our hotel customers. So that meant helping them upgrade their stays, extend their stays, book amenities, book spa appointments, room service, et cetera, et cetera. So it became sort of your luxury concierge hub all on the palm of your hands. This again was a good dozen years ago when apps were really like hitting the market and everything mobile was really in fluid motion. So we rode that wave. We were lucky enough to get some VC and institutional backing, grew the team, started working with hundreds and hundreds of hotels globally with some great names, both big like Marriott and also small like boutique hotels like Soho House. So it was a fun ride. My co-founder and I built the business from scratch. But then COVID hit, and you can imagine for anything travel tech related, it was quite a challenging time.
No, I'm sure it was, and it kind of is one that you really can't anticipate that coming up, and it's one where it impacted a lot of businesses across the board in unexpected ways. So COVID hit, you said, okay, good time to probably make an exit or shift gears or go in a different direction. If I remember when you chatted a bit, you took a pause or kind of decided you're going to take a break and be it or focus on being a dad for a bit before leading to where you're at today, but maybe kind of as COVID's hit, walk us through kind of the decision making you did and kind of the extent or the next steps in the journey.
Yeah, well, look, I think it parallels well with kind of where I was at life, right? We're talking about March 2020 when things started shutting down. I was based in New York. We had just done a Series A few months before, but we had to be very diligent with cash on hand. How are we financing the business? What kind of staff are we going to retain? What is our business? My co-founder at the time, we were trying to figure out what to do. And life-wise, for me, I was married with a 3-year-old. So my dynamics for my own personal life were very different from when I started the business or when I started an agency business and left banking. So for me, it was a very big inflection point in terms of figure out what to do. So I knew I didn't want to just exit, leave my co-founder in a lurch or staff or anything like that. I wanted to have some sort of soft landing. But reality is reality. And at the time, we called up all our hotel customers and asked them like, hey, one, are you going to pay your bills on time? Two, can we offer you a renewal at a 50% discount? Almost no
Mhm.
one took the deal. So we knew very much off the bat when March 2020 hit that our business that we had spent 6 years building was pretty much done overnight. Turns out you need people in hotels to upsell to actually make money and us to get a commission off of that. So when hotels were looking at single digit occupancy, it was, and no one had any visibility as to when the market would come back. It was very clear that we had to furlough 90% of the staff, shut down the platform, sunset our products, and make some hard calls. Now, what's interesting is you juxtapose that where I was in my personal life. Hey, I still had to make rent. And that safety net that I had 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, you could imagine it was very much depleted at that time. And now I'm talking about having a wife and a kid. My wife's in grad school. So there was a lot of issues personally too. I was trying to like really work through. So it was a really tough part of the journey. But it's
Mhm.
true what they say, like necessity is the mother of invention. And I'm really proud, like the small team that we had was essentially my co-founder, myself, our CTO, a PM, and one other person on the customer facing side. And we said, hey, like, there's got to be something we can do to help our hotels. So we took the same thousands of hotels in our CRM. We had hundreds of thousands of emails in terms of a listserv of travelers that we had transacted with beforehand. And overnight, we put up a Shopify website and made up a company called Hotel Credits, which essentially was a glorified Groupon, where travelers would come to the website, buy heavily discounted gift certificates. Hotels would get the cash upfront. They just wanted to keep their doors open. So they were happy to take cash in any way possible. We took our commission, and that's how the company survived in its second iteration. In the meantime, we ran that business for quite some time. Our legacy assets from Porter and Sale, we eventually sold that company to a much larger player based out of Australia called Luxury Escapes. And then we kept operating on hotel credits. Eventually, we sold that and rolled that up to another company. And that's when I took some time off. Two travel tech companies during COVID,
Mm.
8 years of startup life. I was lucky enough to kind of take a little bit of a breather. My wife's from LA. We went to LA. She was pregnant with our second. So I took some time to kind of stay home, played mercenary with a few companies, but really focused on spending time at home and being a dad.
No, sounds like it was a good time to, take a breather from the startup culture and spend a bit of time with the kid while you have it. So you did that, for the period of time, took that breather and break after doing those couple startups. Now, as you're doing that, how long did they kind of take the break, and how long did you decide, okay, had a good break, and now I'm going to go back at it, kind of, or walk us through that a bit?
Yeah, but look, for a good year and a half is kind of when I took a break. I moonlighted at some other kind of YC companies in management, took some consultative roles, still very much startup or early stage oriented. So that was fun. But I knew at some point I would want to hit the reset button and swing for the fences again, have a third at bat. And I was lucky enough to link up with Dr. Andrew Ng. He's a comp sci professor at Stanford. He's on the board of Amazon, founder of Coursera, and he has a venture studio based out of Palo Alto. So I came on board as a founder in residence. The venture studio incubates multiple ideas. I was working on one specific idea, which eventually evolved into what the company that I run today is called Sunrise AI. And from there, I was like, all right, let's have a third at bat and swing for the fences again. And that's been the bulk of my time over the last 18 to 24 months now.
So now you makes sense. So that it kind of evolved to the business where you're at today. Now, catch us up. Kind of, you got into the AI space, which is certainly
Mhm.
up and coming. A lot of people doing a lot of interesting things within that area. Now, as you're doing that, kind of where things at today. Business launch, it's taken off. It's a rocket ship. Still finding the market fit somewhere in between. Kind of help us to kind of get an understanding of where things are at.
Yeah, look, we're relatively new. I spent a good year just doing customer discovery, meaning really trying to figure out what is a huge problem that we could tackle. Went through a few iterations of a team, but things really started taking off about 7, 8 months ago. I had a co-founder who's come in as a CTO September of last year, and he's really helped build the platform for the problem that we're solving. And the problem that we're solving is really for customer success teams at large enterprises that have data sensitive needs and enabling their workflows to just boost NRR, net revenue retention. That's our North Star metric. So we specifically focus on enterprise customer success teams that have thousands and thousands of customers. How do they just boost retention and optimize on NRR itself? We specialize specifically on data sensitive companies, companies that have to deal with MNPI, material non-public information, PCI, PII, personal information. You're a lawyer, so I'm kind of speaking your language. You're HIPAA related information. So that's kind of where we really specialize in. AI is very much seen as a black box. Companies know that
Mm.
the data that they have historically is a treasure trove of information, and that can be used to train AI. But where it's going, where it sits, is it being cross trained? Is it being sold? We lead with the fact that we are very, very much a single tenant model type of environment. Your data is your data. We don't cross train. We don't share that data. It sits and ring fence for your own exclusive purposes only. So that's how we work with the customer success teams. It's only two of us right now. We just got an intern starting today, actually. But that's the beauty of it. There's so much you can do with such a lean team, especially in the world of AI. We have our own internal AI agents that, quite frankly, what we do right now and the customers we work with, this would have required 5 years ago, would have required a team of 15 to 20 people. And we're doing it with two and a half, if that.
Well, that's awesome. Sounds like a fun area to be in, a lot of opportunity, and a good road yet ahead for you and the team as you build out the team and the business. So, well, now as we have kind of reached the present day of the journey, always a great time to transition to the two questions I always like to ask toward the end of each
Right
episode. So
now.
we're going to jump to those now. So
Yeah.
the first question I'd like to ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? What did you learn from it?
Worst business decision I made was during our first startup to keep pushing and pushing with the product that we have. We were not listening to our customers. We fell into the classic kind of first time founder trap of being in love with our product, thinking it's the best thing since sliced bread. But what we really should have done is listen to customers, take their feedback seriously, understand what it is that we're solving for them, what do they like about us versus pushing what we thought is best for them. Listen to your customers, they'll tell you your problems, solve those problems. And we were not doing that. I wish we had pivoted way before than we had.
No, that's always an easy one to, kind of, you think you understand your customers and you understand what they want. Sometimes you might be right and hit it on the mark, and other times you're off. And, it's an easy one to kind of overlook as you tell yourself, I am the customer, I know what they want. So easy mistake to make, but a great one to learn from.
Yeah.
Second question now that I like to ask. So now if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you give them?
Sell before you build. Don't spend any time building anything. Don't spend any time coding. Don't spend any time hiring. Make sure you are talking to prospective customers, understanding their problem, kind of goes back to that first question, and building to or understanding a solution that needs to be created for them. And that's when you start building. And I like so many learnings. This is my third rodeo now, right? We did not write a line of code until we had a contract in hand, and that's just
Hmm.
changed the culture internally for us, right? We are very much commercially oriented, but at the same time we're very much problem oriented. I'm not here thinking that what my idea is so amazing that I need to push it out into the world. I want to know what the world's problems are, my customers problems are. Let me build towards that. Let me solve their problems, right? So sell before you build. Get that contract, know that someone actually cares enough to whip out their checkbook and pay you before you even start creating anything.
Awesome. Definitely a great rule of thumb and a great piece of advice for people to keep in mind as they're getting a business going. So, well, now as we do kind of wrap towards the end of the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Sure. So my email is the best, Deepak at sunrise.ai, Deepak at sunrise.ai. LinkedIn DMs are always open. I'm very active on LinkedIn. And if you want to be my best friend, all you got to do is talk about the New York Knicks to me. So that's the key to my heart. That and pizza.
All right. Well, definitely some great keys to your heart, and definitely encourage people to reach out, support a great business, expand their network, and if nothing else, make a new best friend. So with that, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners that are out there, you have your own journey to share, and you'd like to be guests on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So let's go to inventiveunicorn.com. Apply to be on the show. Couple more things as listeners. Make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review. Helps us to reach even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success. And along that note, if along your journey you ever need help with patents or trademarks or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Deepak, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thanks so much. Appreciate you having me, Devin.